Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, General, I want to thank you for you and your staff for preparing and presenting to the committee this map, which I think is extraordinary. I'm a great believer that you can't confront your adversaries unless you understand them and unless you understand how they think. And to me, the amazing or very interesting and illuminating part of this map is to shows the borders of the Soviet Union in 1989 and today, the borders of Russia. And essentially, from Putin's point of view, his border retreated about 1,000 miles across a whole front of Eastern Europe. And clearly that's part of his worldview in terms of Russia's proper place in the world. Would you agree?
Yes, sir, I agree. That's why I think the map's illustrative, because I think if you're Putin, you're looking out from Moscow, and you see what I think he would consider to have been his strategic buffer. It tells you a bit about his mindset, and for what we know about him, he feels as though he's been encroached upon, that he has a sphere of influence that he believes are rightfully his. Of course, these are nations that have a right to determine their own government.
And part of Russia's history is a kind of paranoia about the West, going back to Frederick the Great and probably Napoleon. They have, in fact, been invaded from the West. And again, that contributes to this mindset. Would you not agree?
I agree, sir. Yes, sir.
And that gets to my real concern, and I've raised this in other hearings, both in the South China Sea or in Europe, is the danger of an accidental war, a danger of misunderstanding, confusion, leading to some kind of escalation. What protections do we have from a misunderstanding? For example, we deploy what we consider a defensive rocket battery, a missile battery in Poland, and the Russians read that as an aggressive act, and it goes from there. How do we ensure that doesn't happen? As I view the world today, I think this is our gravest sort of state-to-state danger, is misunderstanding and leading to accidental conflict.
Yes, sir. I mean, the thing that I worry about the most just day to day is that there's a miscalculation or an issue where we have forces in close proximity. So how do we deal with that? First of all, there are international norms in the air, at sea, et cetera, that day to day the Russians adhere to as well. We've seen violations of that on their part, but it enables us to operate. It's deconfliction. That's correct. It's a good word. The second thing is, I think it's important that we communicate with them. Today we do that primarily through the media, et cetera, but we have, as you know, we have connection with the Russians for deconfliction. And I think that communication is important, because what I try to do in EUCOM.
But do you have military to military? Do you have direct lines of communication with your opposite number in Russia, for example?
I do not today.
Don't you think that would be a good idea? If something you could say, wait a minute, that missile was launched by accident. Don't get alarmed. I mean, I think having that kind of communication, and at the higher level, at the State Department or at the White House level, there should be the opportunity anyway for this kind of communication.
We do have communication for deconfliction within OSD today. It is limited. I agree with you. I think communication is an important component of deterrence, for instance. But I think also, given Russia's behavior, there's some limitation to that. We shouldn't reward them for some of their bad behavior as well. So we should do what we need to do to ensure we're safe and we deconflict, and hopefully they will come.
I'm not suggesting warning them. I'm just suggesting if something occurs, you can get on the line and say, wait a minute, don't misinterpret that.
Roger.
That's where the concern comes.
That's correct.
We talked a lot, and I just want to associate myself with many of the other comments about the information war. To me, the specific answer to our failure to engage successfully in the information war goes back to, I think, 98 or 99, when we abolished USIA. There is no single point in the United States government today that is in charge of information, and I think it's inexcusable that the country that invented Hollywood and Facebook is being defeated on the information battlefield, and clearly that's part of the war that we're engaged in. Putin is achieving great success in Europe and across the world, and one would argue in many areas without firing a shot through effective use of information. And I think that our friends on the Foreign Relations Committee perhaps can consider that, but USIA was the point, and now we don't have it. So I hope we can recover that capacity sooner rather than later. Thank you very much, General.